So those are the only two positive stories we have this whole session. The other nine are going to be a little bit more rough. So, and this is where the trans hysteria really comes in. I've seen people asking, well, I didn't know there's hysteria going on. First of all, what is trans hysteria? Trans hysteria is a concept I've stolen from Eric Anderson's Homo Hysteria. If you don't know Eric Anderson, he is an American gay sociologist, and he talks about three stages of Homo Hysteria: Homo Erasure, Homo Hysteria, and inclusivity. And this tracks along two basic principles: awareness of something and attitudes towards it. I should specify that by attitudes, they typically mean hostility or negative attitudes. Pretty much go back far enough, and awareness of homosexuality, and as we're adapting it to trans people, to them, was relatively limited. Like, you had freak shows, like traveling circuses, that sort of thing. Come see the bearded lady. Like, that's what most people would consider, like, oh, these are, like, these strange people. But as you move along, the media starts picking up these stories. We saw this with homosexuality post-Second World War. That's when they really started, like, pumping out the idea that equated homosexuality with child predation. You see all of these, like, black and white films given at schools, etc. Watch out for the homosexual predator, and like suddenly people are becoming aware. And whilst there always was the hostility, through that increasing awareness, the hostility increases as society enters a moral panic, or homo hysteria in this specific instance. No longer is it just a rare occurrence that you sometimes hear about in the papers happening somewhere else. It's now anyone in your neighborhood could be a homosexual. And we've recently seen that with the trans tipping point in 2014, with suddenly everyone your child is talking to could be transgender, and they could be trying to convert them or breaking into your bathrooms. So as this awareness increases, whilst hostility remains present, it creates like trans hysteria. Now, there are criticisms of Eric's model, in namely the fact that he kind of displays, this hostility will just peter off over time. One thing he fails to account for is constant backsliding, and that's the way in which, as a demographic gains ground, gains more rights, reactionary groups will increase the attack on them, and sometimes will manage to strip away segments of their rights, to backslide. We've seen this very recently with Gender GP, and we'll be coming to discuss that in a bit. But this is what I'm kind of referring to when I talk about trans hysteria. I'm going on the same sort of model. As awareness has increased and hostility has remained constant, it's kind of the amount of hostility in like ever present in society has just sort of exploded. It's every day we're getting a new article attacking us. Every day some pundit is going on TV talking about how, trans women are trying to murder your children, or, trans men are actually lost girls that have been convinced that, they're not actually butch lesbians, they're trans men instead. It's this whole moral panic sort of that's going on. So, with that said, I guess it's time we continue. I should also note, homo hysteria does not mean that people prior the awareness, increase in awareness, weren't receiving abuse. It just means it goes from being an isolated incident thing to something the entire society is partaking in. It is a constant, unified front to stamp out a certain demographic. Eric Anderson mostly focuses on the AIDS crisis. I focus on the trans tipping point. So yes, that's all I really mean when I talk about homohysteria. Another term for it is moral panic. But yes, so that's your lesson there.